300 hours, 5 miles off the southern coast of Pratas Island. The South China Sea heaves with a dark, oily rhythm under a sky devoid of stars. Heavy storm clouds smother the moonlight, turning the horizon into a wall of absolute blackness. Beneath the surface, the water is cold and churning. A massive armada of U.S. amphibious assault ships and destroyers sits motionless in the gloom, their running lights extinguished. They are steel ghosts, waiting for the signal to manifest. On the bridge of the flagship, officers speak in hushed whispers, watching green radar sweeps for any sign of detection. The humidity is oppressive, coating the steel railings in a slick layer of condensation. 5 meters below the waves, Navy Special Operations divers drift through the murk. Their rebreathers make no bubbles, maintaining the silence. They approach the jagged iron shapes of underwater invasion defenses. A sea mine, tethered to a concrete block by a rusted chain, sways ominously in the current. The lead diver signals with a glow stick shielded by his gloved hand. His knife flashes in the gloom as he saws through a thick wire mesh meant to entangle propellers. Another diver clamps a block of plastic explosive onto a rusted steel beam designed to rip the hulls of landing craft. Above them, a small enemy patrol boat cuts through the swell. Its engine hums a low, monotonous drone. A spotlight stabs into the water, sweeping back and forth like a lighthouse beam. The light passes inches over the submerged heads of the dive team. The boat slows. The engine rumble deepens to a growl. A sailor on the deck leans over the railing, a cigarette glowing orange in the dark. He squints at the disturbed water. On a rocky ridge overlooking the cove, a U.S. sniper team lies prone in the mud. The spotter adjusts the focus on his thermal optics. The sailor on the boat appears as a bright white figure against the cold gray water. The spotter whispers the windage. The sniper exhales slowly. The rifle recoils. The bullet cracks through the humid air. The sailor's head snaps back violently. A mist of blood sprays across the white railing. He tumbles over the side, splashing heavily into the dark water. The patrol boat captain shouts inside the cabin. He reaches for the red alarm button on the console. A second shot punches through the reinforced glass of the wheelhouse. The glass shatters into diamonds. The captain collapses onto the throttle. The boat surges forward, engine screaming, turning hard to port. It slams into the rocky outcrop at full speed. Metal screeches against stone. Sparks shower the water as the fuel tank ruptures. The explosion engulfs the small vessel in a fireball that illuminates the entire bay. The divers kick hard away from the defensive line. The lead diver squeezes the detonator. Underwater shockwaves ripple through the bay. Dull thuds vibrate through the hulls of the distant fleet. Geysers of water erupt along the shoreline. The steel beams twist and shear apart. The mines chain react, exploding in muffled flashes that light up the sea from below. Debris rains down on the surface. On the flagship bridge, the admiral watches the infrared feed. The silence is broken. He nods to the communications officer. The order goes out. Execute. Engines rumble to life across the formation. The low hum turns into a roar as the destroyers power up. The fleet begins its acceleration toward the smoking shoreline. The burning patrol boat casts a flickering orange light on the waves. The path to the beach is clear, but the element of surprise is gone. Searchlights on the island flicker on, piercing the night. The island is waking up. For 30 hours, Pratas Island Coastal Defense Network. The burning wreckage of the patrol boat casts long, dancing shadows against the cliff face. The darkness shatters as air raid sirens begin a mournful, rising mechanical wail. Inside the subterranean tunnels, red strobe lights pulse rhythmically. Soldiers sprint through the concrete corridors, their boots hammering against the floor. Officers bark orders over the clamor. Crews wrestle heavy crates of ammunition onto conveyor belts. The air smells of diesel fumes and nervous sweat. Inside the central fire control bunker, a radar operator stares at his scope. The green sweep completes a rotation. The screen lights up with dozens of solid contacts closing fast. He screams the coordinates into his headset. The battery commander slams his fist onto the firing console. On the surface, camouflage netting falls away from the cliffside. Hydraulics whine as massive coastal artillery guns grind forward from their hardened silos. The barrels elevate, locking onto the approaching silhouettes. The lead gun roars. A 10-foot tongue of flame erupts from the muzzle. The ground shakes violently, dislodging dust from the bunker ceiling. The heavy shell screams through the air, tearing a vacuum in the humidity. It slams into the ocean 50 yards off the bow of the lead U.S. destroyer. A geyser of salt water erupts 3 stories high, drenching the forward deck. Steel fragments spray against the ship's hull like hail. More batteries join the chorus. The night sky transforms into a strobe light of muzzle flashes. Tracers arc over the black water, glowing angry red. On the island's ridge, mobile missile launchers raise their tubes. Rocket motors ignite with a blinding white flash. 4 anti-ship missiles screech off the rails, trailing thick gray smoke. They drop low, skimming the waves, accelerating to supersonic speeds. On the deck of the U.S. destroyer, the defensive rotary cannons spin up. The sound is a low electric buzz that instantly turns into a deafening tear. Brrrt! A wall of tungsten rounds flies out to meet the incoming missiles. The lead missile detonates in midair. The explosion is a bright orange blossom against the black sky. Shrapnel rains down on the chopping water. The second missile slips through the defensive screen. It strikes the destroyer's superstructure near the radar array. Metal shears and buckles. The explosion rips a jagged hole in the steel plating. Fire engulfs the comms tower. Sailors are thrown across the bridge by the concussion. Glass blows out, showering the crew. The destroyer captain pulls himself up from the deck. Blood runs down his forehead. He grabs the tactical handset. He ignores the alarms screaming on the console. "All ships, weapons free," he yells. "Counterfire! Bring the rain!" The destroyer lists slightly to port as damage control teams rush toward the smoke. The ocean boils with missed shots. The sky above the island is no longer dark. It glows with the chaotic light of war. The ambush is over. The slugfest begins. 500 hours, the firing line, 3 miles offshore. The ocean surface is a chaotic tapestry of white foam and black oil. The burning U.S. destroyer lists to port, crews spraying foam on the charred superstructure. The rest of the fleet pivots in unison, presenting their broadsides to the island. The air vibrates with the deep, throbbing hum of gas turbine engines running at maximum power. On the forward decks of the cruisers, rows of steel hatch covers flip open simultaneously. The mechanical clank echoes over the water. "Fire for effect," the gunnery officer commands.
Fire.
The vertical launch systems erupt. Compressed air ejects massive cruise missiles from their tubes. Solid rocket boosters ignite instantly. The ships disappear momentarily inside blinding white clouds of exhaust. The missiles scream skyward, trailing thick pillars of smoke. They tip over at the apex of their climb, accelerating toward the island like a swarm of angry hornets. Simultaneously, the 5-inch deck guns on the destroyers swivel. The autoloaders cycle. The barrels recoil violently. Crack thump, hundreds of high-explosive shells arc through the air, chasing the missiles. On Pratas Island, the ground defense commander watches the radar screen turn into a solid wall of red static. He grabs the railing. The first cruise missile slams into the primary artillery bunker. The warhead penetrates 3 feet of reinforced concrete before detonating. The bunker disintegrates. A shockwave of dust and pulverized rock blasts outward, flattening the surrounding palm trees. Huge slabs of concrete, twisted with rebar, cartwheel through the air. The artillery shells arrive seconds later. They walk the trench lines in a terrifying, rhythmic progression. Explosions stitch the earth. Dirt, sand, and sandbags geyser into the air. An ammunition depot takes a direct hit. The secondary explosion is massive. A mushroom cloud of fire rolls upward, sucking the oxygen out of the surrounding trenches. Soldiers in the outer perimeter are lifted off their feet by the concussion. They slam against the trench walls. Eardrums rupture. Helmets roll across the shaking ground. A radar tower shears off at the base, toppling slowly before crashing into a command tent. The steel structure groans as it crumples. The barrage is relentless. The island is no longer a tropical outpost. It is a churning cauldron of fire and debris. The smoke is thick and black, blotting out the rising sun. The roar of the explosions drowns out the screams of the wounded. On the lead cruiser, the deck gun smokes. Empty shell casings clutter the floor of the turret. The barrel glows a dull red. The gunnery officer checks the drone feed. The enemy coastal batteries are silent. The ridge is a smoking ruin. "Target suppressed," he reports. "Prepare for air operations." 0530 hours. Flight deck of the U.S. carrier strike group. The dawn sky is a bruised purple. The steel deck vibrates violently. Steam curls from the catapult tracks, whipping in the wind. Jet blast deflectors rise like armored walls. Ground crews in yellow shirts crouch low, bracing against the thrust. The air smells of burning kerosene and salt. A fighter jet sits on the shuttle, its single engine screaming at full afterburner. The heat blur distorts the horizon. The pilot signals a crisp salute. The shooter drops to one knee and points forward. The catapult fires. The jet blurs down the track. It hurtles off the bow, dropping slightly toward the water before the lift catches the wings. It climbs vertically, piercing the cloud layer. Another follows, then another. Behind them, a squadron of attack helicopters lifts off, noses dipping as they accelerate toward the island like a swarm of angry wasps. High above the clouds, the radar warning receiver shrieks. Enemy fighters dive from the sun. They drop fast. A missile streaks from the lead enemy wing. The U.S. pilot yanks the stick hard to the left. The jet rolls inverted. Flares pop from the tail, burning bright magnesium white against the blue. The missile chases the heat, detonating harmlessly in the wake. The shockwave rattles the cockpit. "Fox 2!" the U.S. pilot yells. He locks a tone. He squeezes the trigger. A heat-seeking missile tears off the rail. It corkscrews through the thin air. It slams into the enemy engine exhaust. The rear of the enemy jet disintegrates. The fuselage tumbles, engulfed in orange flames. The enemy pilot ejects. The canopy blows off, and the seat rockets out just before the plane explodes. Debris scatters across the sky. Below, the attack helicopters skim the waves, rotors churning the salt spray. They pop up over the tree line. Enemy tanks are moving through the palms, trying to reposition. The helicopter gunner aligns the crosshairs on the thermal display. "Rifle," he says. An anti-tank missile drops, ignites, and streaks forward. It impacts the top of the lead tank turret. The armor melts instantly. The ammunition inside cooks off. The heavy turret flies 20 feet into the air, trailing fire. The hull burns fiercely, black smoke billowing up to meet the choppers. An enemy anti-aircraft gun tracks the lead helicopter. Green tracers zip past the cockpit glass. The pilot banks hard right. The door gunner opens up with the minigun. The barrels spin. A solid stream of lead saws through the vegetation. The anti-aircraft crew falls, cut down by the sheer volume of fire. The gun falls silent. The sky is a tapestry of white contrails and black smoke. Burning aluminum rains down into the jungle canopy, starting small fires. The surviving enemy jets turn and burn for the mainland. The U.S. flight leader levels his wings, looking down at the invasion fleet. "Airspace cleared," he radios. "Send in the Marines." 0600 hours, well deck of the primary amphibious assault ship. The massive steel stern gate slowly lowers into the ocean, groaning against the hydraulic pressure. Seawater rushes into the hold, swirling around the tracks of the armored vehicles. The air is thick with blue diesel exhaust and the deafening roar of idling turbines. Red staging lights turn to solid green. The deckmaster waves a glowing wand in a violent circular motion. The lead hovercraft throttles up. Its massive rubber skirt inflates, lifting the 100-ton vessel off the steel deck. It surges forward, sliding off the ramp and smashing onto the surface of the ocean. A wall of white spray engulfs the cockpit. The propellers bite into the air, pushing the craft to 60 knots in seconds. It tears across the swells, skipping over the wave tops like a flat stone. Behind it, amphibious assault vehicles drop from the ramp, plunging nose first into the water. They bob heavily before their water jets engage. They form a jagged line, churning through the rough surf. Inside the troop compartment of the lead vehicle, 20 Marines sit knee to knee. The hull slams against the waves, vibrating through their boots. The noise is a constant, deafening mechanical grind. A Marine vomits onto the grated floor. Another tightens the strap on his helmet, his knuckles white around the grip of his rifle. Sea spray leaks through the top hatches, mixing with the sweat on their faces. Outside, the water erupts. Enemy mortar crews on the island have the range. A shell lands 10 yards from the starboard flank of a transport. The explosion throws a column of water and shrapnel over the vehicle. The heavy steel hull rocks violently to the left. The driver fights the yoke, correcting the course. Another shell lands directly ahead, vaporizing the crest of a wave. The vehicle drives straight through the falling curtain of water. The platoon sergeant stands in the turret, looking through the periscope. The beach is a smoking gray line, growing larger by the second. Tracer fire begins to reach out from the tree line, skipping off the water like angry fireflies. Bullets ping against the thick armor of the vehicles. "Lock and load!" the sergeant yells over the internal comms. 30 seconds! The Marines rack the charging handles of their rifles. The metallic clack-clack echoes down the line. They stand, bracing themselves against the swaying bulkheads. The hovercrafts hit the sand first, sliding up the beach with a massive release of air pressure. The dust cloud is instantaneous. The amphibious vehicles struggle through the breaking surf, their tracks biting into the wet sand beneath the water. They lurch forward, engines screaming as they transition from sea to land. The invasion has touched the soil. 6:15 hours, Red Beach, Pratas Island. The heavy hydraulic ramp of the lead amphibious assault vehicle slams down into the wet sand. The sudden light blinds the squad inside. The air is choked with gray smoke, pulverized coral, and the copper smell of cordite. The beach is a chaotic moonscape of craters and twisted barbed wire. A heavy machine gun from a concealed bunker immediately rakes the open ramp. Bullets hammer the steel hull, sparking violently. The first Marine down the ramp jerks backward. 2 rounds punch through his chest plate. He collapses, blocking the exit. "Move! Move!" the sergeant roars. He grabs the fallen Marine's drag handle and hurls him aside. The squad pours out. They sprint into the open, boots slipping on the loose sand. The air snaps with the sonic crack of passing bullets. Sand geysers erupt around their feet as the enemy gunner tracks their movement. A mortar shell whistles in. It detonates 10 yards to the left. The explosion is a deafening crack. The concussion wave knocks 3 Marines flat. Shrapnel shreds a backpack. Wet sand rains down in heavy clumps. 1 Marine struggles to stand, blood soaking his pant leg. A medic rushes forward, tackles him, and drags him behind the rusted hulk of a destroyed landing craft. The rest of the squad dives behind a row of steel tank traps. Bullets chip away at the metal beams, sending hot splinters flying. The sergeant peeks around the cover. He points his rifle and fires a quick burst at the bunker slit. "Smoke! Get smoke out!" A corporal pulls the pin on a canister and hurls it forward. It bounces once and hisses. Thick purple smoke billows out, expanding rapidly. It creates a temporary swirling wall between the Marines and the bunkers. "Push!" The Marines rise and sprint through the purple haze. They move blindly, trusting the concealment. They hit the concrete seawall hard, slamming their bodies against the rough surface. This is the only dead ground on the beach. Above them, enemy fire chews up the top of the wall. Concrete dust showers down on their helmets. The medic reaches the wall, dragging the wounded man. He rips open a pouch. He cranks a tourniquet onto the Marine's thigh. The bleeding slows. The wounded man grits his teeth, his face pale and covered in grit. The sergeant checks his magazine. He looks down the line of survivors. They are pinned, but they are off the sand. 6:30 hours base of the concrete seawall. The Marines huddle tight against the rough gray concrete. The air above them is a lethal highway of lead. Bullets snap and hiss inches above their helmets. Concrete dust falls like snow, coating their weapons and uniforms in a fine white powder. The smell of ozone and wet cement mixes with the metallic tang of blood. A hand grenade tumbles over the top of the wall. It clatters against a Marine's boot. He kicks it desperately. It explodes 5 yards away. The concussion punches the squad against the wall. Shrapnel pocks the concrete. "Engineers up!" The platoon sergeant screams over the ringing in his ears. 2 combat engineers sprint from the flank, bent double under the weight of green metal tubes. They carry a Bangalore torpedo, linked sections of pipe filled with high explosives. They slam into the sand beside the sergeant. Their hands move in a blur, snapping the sections together. The lead engineer nods. He rolls onto his stomach. He crawls away from the safety of the wall, dragging the long explosive snake behind him. He pushes it toward the tangle of razor wire and tank traps blocking the exit. An enemy machine gunner spots the movement. Sand erupts in a violent line, tracking toward the engineer. The bullets chew up the ground inches from his face. He flinches but does not stop. He shoves the tube deep under the wire coils. He arms the fuse. A round strikes his shoulder plate, spinning him around. He grunts, rolls onto his back, and scrambles frantically back to the wall. "Fire in the hole!" The Marines bury their heads. The engineer squeezes the clacker. The explosion is sharp and massive. It rips the air apart. The blast wave kicks up a wall of black sand. The triple-strand razor wire vaporizes. The steel pickets twist into pretzels. A 10-foot section of the concrete wall cracks and crumbles, collapsing into a pile of rubble. The smoke clears instantly, pushed away by the overpressure. "Go, go, go!" The sergeant rises. He fires his rifle from the hip. The squad surges forward, scrambling over the broken concrete and smoking debris. They pour through the breach like water through a broken dam. The enemy trench line is right in front of them. A soldier pops up from a spider hole. The lead Marine puts 2 rounds in his chest. The soldier falls back into the hole. The beachhead is open. 6:45 hours, waterline at Red Beach. The massive black rubber skirts of the transport hovercrafts deflate, settling onto the wet sand like dying whales. The huge propellers slow to a rhythmic thwop-thwop, cutting the spray. The steel ramps slam down, crushing the coral. Deep inside the cargo hold, a turbine engine whines to a piercing pitch. The ground shakes. A battle tank lurches forward, breaking into the sunlight. 70 tons of composite armor and steel grind the beach into paste. The tracks chew through the loose shale, throwing heavy clods of wet earth 10 feet into the air. The tank accelerates, crushing the rusted remains of a destroyed jeep without slowing down. The metal carcass flattens with a shriek of tearing steel. Up on the ridge, an enemy anti-tank team leans out from a camouflaged trench. A soldier shoulders a rocket launcher. The exhaust plume erupts behind him. The rocket streaks down the hill, spiraling erratically. It slams into the side turret of the lead tank. The explosion is a sharp, cracking thunderclap. The tank's reactive armor tiles detonate outward, intercepting the warhead. A cloud of black smoke and fire engulfs the vehicle. The tank does not stop. It emerges from the smoke, the side of its turret scorched black but intact. The turret motor whirs. The long barrel snaps toward the ridge. "Canister, fire!" the tank commander yells. The main cannon recoils. A massive shotgun-style shell blasts from the muzzle. Thousands of tungsten balls saturate the ridgeline. The vegetation is stripped bare instantly. The anti-tank team disappears in a mist of red earth and shredded foliage. The trench line collapses. The tank rolls forward, reaching the seawall breach. The driver guns the engine. The nose of the tank rises, exposing the underbelly, then crashes down on the other side. The tracks grip the concrete debris. It pushes through the gap, snapping iron rebar like dry twigs. A concrete pillbox fires a heavy machine gun at the tank's optics. The rounds spark uselessly off the sloped armor. The tank stops. The barrel lowers slightly. The main gun fires a high-explosive round at point-blank range. The pillbox disintegrates. Large chunks of concrete roof flip into the air. The firing slit becomes a gaping black hole pouring smoke. Behind the tank, a squad of Marines rises from the sand. They stack up behind the exhaust grills, using the armored behemoth as a moving shield. The tank advances, its coaxial machine guns spitting a continuous stream of brass casings onto the engine deck. The beachhead is secure. The armor has arrived. 7 hours vegetation belt south of the airfield. The roar of the beach battle fades to a dull thudding behind the advancing squad. The jungle is a suffocating wall of green. Sunlight slices through the thick canopy in narrow, hazy beams. The air is heavy and still, smelling of rotting vegetation and wet earth. Marines step carefully over tangled roots, their boots sinking into the black mud. Sweat drips from their chin straps. The only sound is the snap of dry twigs underfoot and the buzzing of insects. The point man freezes. He raises a fist. A patch of ferns to his right looks wrong. The leaves are matted down. The ground opens up. A camouflaged lid, covered in moss and dirt, flips back. An enemy soldier pops up from the spider hole not 5 feet away. He raises a submachine gun. The point man pivots. The two weapons fire simultaneously. The Marine takes a burst to the chest plate. The impact knocks him backward into a tree trunk. The enemy soldier's head snaps back as a rifle round catches him under the helmet rim. He drops back into the hole. The jungle erupts. Hidden firing positions ignite all around the squad. Green tracers zip through the foliage, shredding banana leaves and splintering bamboo. Bark explodes off the trees. Marines dive into the mud, scrambling for cover behind thick roots and fallen logs. "Contact front, contact right!" the squad leader yells. A machine gun opens up from a fortified trench concealed by heavy brush. The bullets chew through the rotting log, protecting the medic. Wood chips spray his face. He stays low, firing blindly over the top. A Marine on the flank spots the trench line. He unclips a grenade. He pulls the pin and cooks it for 2 seconds. He hurls it through a gap in the vines. The grenade disappears into the dark earth. Whoomp! The explosion lifts a cloud of dirt and shredded uniforms out of the trench. A scream is cut short. "Clear it out!" 2 Marines rush the spider hole network. One fires his rifle into the opening to keep heads down. The other pulls a heavy shotgun from his back scabbard. He racks the slide. He jumps into the trench. The sound of the shotgun blasts is deep and booming. Boom, boom, boom. Smoke drifts up from the holes. The frantic rustling in the bushes stops. The squad leader signals the advance. They move past the bodies of the enemy defenders, half buried in the mud. The point man groans, pushing himself up, his armor plate cracked but holding. The squad pushes deeper into the green maze. 745 hours, Pratas Island airfield. The dense jungle abruptly gives way to the flat, gray expanse of the main runway. Heat waves shimmer off the asphalt, distorting the distance. U.S. Marines spill out of the tree line, setting up hasty fighting positions behind fuel drums and abandoned baggage carts. The air is deceptively quiet, save for the distant thrum of jets overhead. The ground begins to tremble. It is a low, rhythmic vibration that rattles the teeth. Pebbles dance on the tarmac. On the far side of the airfield, camouflage netting drops away from 3 massive earth mounds. Heavy steel doors blast open. Black exhaust plumes erupt. Enemy battle tanks surge from the underground bunkers. They accelerate onto the runway, engines screaming. They do not stop to aim. Their stabilized turrets track the targets while moving at 40 miles per hour. The lead tank fires. The muzzle blast kicks up a cloud of dust. The shell impacts a parked baggage truck near the U.S. line. The truck disintegrates in a shower of twisted metal and burning rubber. Marines dive for cover as shrapnel rakes the tarmac. "Tank! Tank! Front!" From the beach road, 2 U.S. battle tanks roar onto the tarmac to meet the threat. They drift around the corner, tracks screeching and sparking against the concrete. The tank duel begins at point-blank range, less than 400 meters. The lead U.S. tank fires a sabot round. The kinetic penetrator leaves the barrel at hypersonic speed. It crosses the gap in a fraction of a second. It strikes the frontal armor of the lead enemy tank. The impact sound is like a giant hammer striking an anvil. The enemy tank shudders violently. The penetrator punches through the steel, spalling red-hot metal fragments inside the crew compartment. The tank veers sharply to the left, crashing into a drainage ditch. Smoke pours from the commander's hatch. The second enemy tank returns fire. The shell glances off the sloped turret of the U.S. tank. It gouges a deep trench in the ceramic armor but deflects upward, exploding harmlessly in the air. The concussion rings the U.S. tank crew like a bell. The U.S. tank commander screams orders. The driver pivots the hull. The loader slams a fresh round into the breech. Clang hiss. Up! The gunner fires. The round hits the enemy tank's drive sprocket. The heavy steel track snaps with a loud crack. The track unspools like a dead snake, whipping against the hull. The enemy tank spins out of control, sliding sideways across the runway. It comes to a halt, exposing its thinner side armor. A U.S. infantry team seizes the opening. A Marine shoulders a rocket launcher. He aims at the exposed engine deck. The rocket streaks out. It strikes the rear of the disabled tank. The fuel cells ignite. A pillar of vertical flame erupts, engulfing the turret. The ammunition cooks off seconds later, blowing the hatch covers into the sky. The surviving enemy tank reverses, popping smoke canisters. Thick white phosphorus clouds blanket the runway, obscuring the retreat. The U.S. tanks hold their fire, thermal sights scanning the gray wall of smoke. The counterattack is broken. The burning wrecks litter the runway, black smoke choking the morning air. 0830 hours. The Citadel Pratas Island summit. The command bunker is a gray concrete scar carved into the volcanic rock of the highest peak. The panoramic window of the observation deck is shattered, jagged shards of glass hanging like teeth. Black smoke pours from the ventilation shafts, staining the white clouds above. Below, the jungle burns. A platoon of Marines stacks up against the retaining wall, their uniforms stained with mud and sweat. They check their magazines. The air is thin and smells of sulfur. A heavy steel blast door blocks the main entrance. A firing port slides open in the center of the metal. The barrel of an enemy machine gun protrudes. Cover! The gun roars. Bullets chip away the concrete corner where the lead Marine stands. Sparks shower his helmet. The squad presses tight against the wall. The ricochets whine into the valley below. Bring up the toaster! The platoon commander yells. A combat engineer moves forward, struggling under the weight of a heavy backpack unit. He holds a flame projection nozzle. He steps out from cover, flanked by two riflemen who lay down a wall of suppressive fire at the gun port. The engineer squeezes the trigger. A jet of liquid fire erupts from the nozzle. It arcs across the open ground, a bright orange lash. It strikes the steel door and splashes through the open firing port. The machine gun stops firing instantly. The fire is sucked inside the bunker. A high-pitched screaming echoes from behind the steel. Smoke billows out, thick and oily. Breacher, up! Another engineer rushes the door while the metal is still smoking. He slaps a square sheet of C4 plastic explosive over the hinges. He wires the detonator and sprints back. Fire in the hole! The explosion is sharp and concussive. The heavy steel door shears off its frame. It falls inward with a deafening metallic clang. The Marines flood the gap. They enter the dark throat of the bunker. The corridor is filled with choking, acrid smoke. Red emergency lights spin on the ceiling, casting long, rotating shadows. Enemy soldiers appear at the end of the hall, silhouettes in the red gloom. They raise their rifles. The point Marine fires. His muzzle flash illuminates the narrow space. Bang, 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 bang. The first enemy soldier crumples, his weapon clattering to the floor. The second takes a round to the shoulder, spins, and falls against the wall, sliding down into a sitting position. The squad moves methodically. They reach the central operations room. The heavy door is locked. A Marine blasts the lock with a shotgun. He kicks the door open. A flashbang grenade sails into the room. Bang! The blinding white flash stuns the occupants. The Marines storm the room. Inside, enemy officers are frantically smashing computer hard drives with rifle butts. They freeze. Laser sights sweep across their chests. The lead officer reaches for a pistol on his belt. 3 Marines fire simultaneously. The officer is thrown back over the tactical map table. Maps and papers fly into the air, drifting down over the body. The remaining staff raise their hands. The room falls silent, save for the hum of the cooling servers and the heavy breathing of the assault team. Command post secure, the lieutenant radios. Jackpot, 900 hours, Red Beach casualty collection point. The deafening roar of combat has faded. The silence that follows is heavy, broken only by the crackle of burning fuel and the rhythmic wash of the waves. The beach is a scarred wasteland. Black craters pock the white sand. Twisted metal hulks of destroyed vehicles smoke gently, their steel skeletons cooling in the ocean breeze. The air is thick with the cloying, metallic scent of blood mixed with spent gunpowder. Navy corpsmen move with frantic precision in the triage pit dug into the sand. Rows of stretchers line the beach. A Marine screams as a medic tightens a tourniquet on a shattered leg. The medic ignores the scream, checking the time written on the casualty card. He stabs a morphine auto-injector into the wounded man's thigh. The screaming fades to a low moan. "Pressure! Hold pressure here!" a surgeon yells. He is knee-deep in red sand, his gloves slick. He packs gauze into a shrapnel wound on a soldier's chest. The soldier gasps, his eyes wide and unfocused, staring at the gray sky. On the horizon, black dots appear. The low drone of engines grows into a thumping vibration. Heavy transport helicopters approach from the fleet. They bank low over the water, their massive rotors kicking up a storm of spray and sand. The lead helicopter flares for landing. The wheels touch down on the blackened tarmac of the secured airfield. The rear ramp lowers. Dust swirls violently, coating the sweat-drenched faces of the ground crew. "Load 'em up, green tags first!" Marines grab the handles of the stretchers. They run towards the waiting aircraft, heads ducked against the rotor wash. They slide the wounded onto the metal deck of the cargo hold. The flight nurses immediately hook up IV bags, hanging them from the ceiling hooks. The bags sway with the vibration of the engines. Near the seawall, a grim detail unfolds. Marines lift black body bags onto a separate truck. They move slowly, respectfully. There is no talking. A helmet sits atop the pile, its camouflage cover torn. The platoon sergeant sits on a piece of broken concrete, his helmet off. He wipes a mixture of soot and grease from his forehead. He lights a cigarette. His hands tremble slightly. He watches the helicopter lift off. The aircraft banks out toward the ocean, carrying the broken men back to the ships. He looks up at the ridge. The American flag snaps in the wind atop the captured command bunker. The island is silent. The battle is won. The cost is stamped into the sand.